Live. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to those joining us online as well as those in the room. As Becky, could you take
A roll
a
call.
roll call, please?
Yep, so in alphabetical order, if members can please confirm if they are present in the meeting room or present online. So we have Councillor Peter Paul Barker.
Present online.
Thank you. Robin Bennett.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Casey Rurai.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Maggie Filipova Rivers.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Georgina Heritage.
Present online.
Thank you. Councillor Sam James Laurie.
Present online.
Thank you. Councillor David Rowe.
Present in the room.
Thank you. And Councillor Anne-Marie Simpson.
Present in the room.
Thank you.
On chair's announcements, people will be aware of the filthy weather outside, which meant a couple of the bridges are closed, which is why some of our cabinet members are joining us online. Logistics of getting here, but fortunately we have enough people in the room to be for it. I'm going to cover this under chair's announcements rather than urgent business. I've got a few things to update on. Primarily, earlier this week we had a meeting of FOP, the Future Oxfordshire Partnership, which is actually the last formal meeting of the Future Oxfordshire Partnership, because we agreed a paper which said essentially that the partnership was set up to administer the Oxfordshire Growth Deal. That growth deal has come to an end now. All the funds are committed, and it's being administered by the County Council. And so we're looking at what the future direction of the Future Oxfordshire Partnership should be. The paper that was before us set out a direction of travel, which is for a more slimlined version of the partnership. The advisory groups, which lots of people will be aware of, and which people around the table have all been members of, will be no more. And if we need a subgroup to look at particular items, then we'll set up a task and finish group that will deal with that particular item and then disband, which seems a far more transparent way of doing things, in that a lot of things were discussed in those advisory groups that then came to FOP in a final form, but the discussion that got us to that point was held in the advisory groups, which were not public meetings. So I'm quite pleased that we're moving towards more public form of debate on those issues. We're also trying to define what the issues are that we should discuss, and that they should be, first of all, things where we can add value by working as Oxfordshire councils together rather than doing them individually. But also there should be things that are brought to us by and determined by the leaders of the councils. So we will set the agenda, which is a more democratic way of doing things than things just emerging as they appear to do in the past. So that's one of the things that I've been up to this week. And the other thing I'd like to mention is something I'm doing tomorrow, which is a long-standing commitment but very appropriate, is a flood resilience forum, which is being hosted by the County Council. Because yes, I'm certain that you've all had the same, but in my ward we have one area that often floods, but we've also got new areas that have flooded this time that have never flooded before, and this is becoming more of a consideration for all, for residents, but also for local authorities and for public bodies that have to deal with that sort of thing. So good to see that the county is hosting this forum tomorrow. So that'll be my Friday morning this week. They're the two announcements I had to make. Can we move on back onto the agenda, which is item 3, minutes of the meeting on the 10th of October. Is everyone, if I propose that they are an accurate record, is everyone content for me to find those? Can I have a seconder? Maggie, and everyone happy? Oops. I will sign those if briefly, if I get a brief moment during the meeting or at the end of the meeting. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interests, or non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting?
I don't think it's a conflict, but I do have I'm a director of an arts company, but it's under the rules under item 11, it wouldn't be eligible for those grants, so probably contribute. That's okay, contribute, but I would mention it.
Yes, full disclosure, but not an interest of any that need to finish that sentence off for me.
Oh, Nick will tell me.
Yeah, well, our monitoring officer has popped up on the screen, but I think that's just to say, yes, that's not something to worry about. Okay. Anyone else have any interest that needs to play? Okay. Urgent business. I don't have any urgent business, and I sort of merged that with the chair's announcements. Does anyone else have any urgent business? Moving on to public participation. I believe we have one person registered to speak.
Yes, with Councillor Stefan Grisiak. I believe he's online. Gavshak. Apologies, Gavshak.
Councillor Gavshak, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I was going to give you the option, Stefan, of either speaking now or waiting until we get to the item and then speaking before we get going with that. Happy to leave it to you. Would you like to speak now?
I don't mind. It's your call, Chair.
This is the item for public participation. So if you'd like to speak now, and we'll bear in mind what you say and bring it up when we get to that item.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity of speaking on item 11, which is the Performing Arts Grants Policy. The first thing to say is that I absolutely and utterly welcome this. It's great. We all collectively in the budget setting process actually decided to set aside a sum of money, £60,000 for 3 years, total £180,000, and it's great that South Oxfordshire Council, and under your leadership and the leadership of the cabinet, actually is trying to support the arts. We all know that the arts contribute so much to the lives of people. I will just take that as read. I will also thank, I will mention his first name only, I will also thank Phil and Georgina, the officer concerned. He's highly skilled. I've had a couple of meetings with him. He comes with a fantastic CV, a wealth of experience, and a huge wealth of knowledge, and he will be a great asset going forward, and Georgina as well taken as read. I will say that the scheme is good, giving grants for £500 to £5,000. For example, 500 quid for the Benson Choral Society to hire the hall and also pay for the rights to the music is a really good contribution. Not that I'm saying that Benson Choral should only get £500, but for smaller groups, this is a wonderful thing, wonderful asset to have. Locally in Henley, we have a company called the Acorn Theatre, which actually develops young people. and they do 3 or 4 performances a year. And again, they have costs of hiring halls and hiring lighting, etc., etc., etc. And just to note on that particular thing, out of the Acorn Theatre came a young man called Toby Marlowe, who is the joint author of the musical Six, which is in the West End at the moment. So it's a great training ground going forward. It's great for hire of halls and coping with costs of performance rights. I attended 12th Night in Tame, I attended 12th Night in Henley, and the reason why those performances were put on was because Shakespeare does not have performing rights to pay, because it's old, and a lot of the decisions are being made. I know Tame is a wonderful theatre, and the Core Market at Wallingford is also wonderful. I'll talk about the Kenton Theatre. Right. The reason why, and I'm coming to the nub of it, there is a but coming. The reason why, the reason why I'm speaking this evening, even though the policy is very, very good in many respects, the policy does not cater for the intended cause. I brought this to council because of the funding going into Didcot, and the main aim was to fund theatres, the fabric of the buildings, and specifically in the policy that is excluded. Core operation, what we will not fund: core operational costs, routine expenses such as staff salaries, rent, utilities, ongoing costs. Theatres in Henley and in Tame and Wallingford need some central funding to actually put the lights on, to do the heating, to fix the leaks in the roof, etc. So that is something that is specifically excluded by this policy, that I would urge you to actually get I would like the policy rewritten for that. I mean, we all love, and I specifically love, the performing arts.
Could I ask you to bring your
Right. Can I have one
close
more
for a
minute?
second?
I will have one more minute, and then I'll...
Gallop quickly.
Sorry?
Gallop quickly.
Okay, I will. I apologise. In the Kenton Theatre, 60%, and here is the list, 60% of the performances are community-based. And I'm wondering how the funding for the Kenton Theatre is going to come out of this. So I would ask Cabinet to actually ask that this policy is rewritten, to bear in mind the core costs of Kenton, Tame and the Core Market. And also my other plea is, please keep the application simple. If you're applying for a £500 grant, it really should be very, very simple to get that money. But I would like the core funding of theatres addressed, please. Thank you very much, Chair. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'm sure the Cabinet member will comment on the points you've raised when we come to that item, and I've made a note of them if we don't cover them otherwise. Thank you. Next item is item 7, recommendations and updates from other committees, which is on page 5 of your documents. Becky, do you want to take us through that? Or...
Yep, so thank you, Chair. As you can see, we have recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee on the 5th of November, where they discussed the Leisure Facilities Assessment Strategy and Playing Pitch Strategy report. So as you can see, they've made a few recommendations for you to consider tonight.
Thank you. And I'm sure Cabinet have read that document, and we'll refer to those as we get to that item, which is the next item on the agenda. Leisure Facilities Strategy and Playing Pitch Strategy. Councillor Simpson, I believe you're introducing this.
Yeah, it's a long introduction, so bear with me.
Clock's ticking.
I'm pleased to introduce the South Oxfordshire Leisure Facilities Assessment and Strategy and Playing Pitch Strategy to Cabinet today, and hope you agree with the officer's recommendation to adopt these strategies. These strategies are the result of a joint commission with Vale of White Horse and provide a consistent approach to sport and leisure provision in our districts. Each district has its own separate strategies for both leisure facilities and playing pitches, with a consistent cross-boundary approach to provision in the Didcot area. They form a key part of the evidence base for the joint local plan and provide a strategic framework to direct funds for enhancing existing or building new facilities. Both strategies are a high-level assessment of the key sports and leisure needs of the districts, or of the district in this case, providing us with an idea of the need for such facilities and broadly where that need could be met. At this strategic district-wide level, such a strategy can only be a snapshot in time, as sports and leisure provision will need to respond to local circumstances, such as the setting up or dissolution of new clubs or the opening or closure of privately run facilities. This is entirely consistent with the approach set out in Sports England's guidance and methodology for these strategies. The strategies make recommendations for leisure facilities and pitches across three broad categories. The first is protect, recognising a key facility that needs to remain in place to ensure we have sufficient coverage for that sport or activity. The second is enhance, where an existing facility needs to offer higher quality or higher capacity to ensure sufficient coverage. And thirdly, provide, where new facilities are needed. To be clear, these recommendations set the ambition and direction of travel, but do not provide an acceptance that the Council will undertake every action mentioned within it. That will require further and more detailed works and an action plan during the strategy period. Work began on these when we commissioned Stuart Todd Associates to prepare these strategies in autumn 2022. This started with a detailed audit of all our existing leisure facilities and pitches, including both desktop assessments and site visits, as well as sending questionnaires to sports clubs and pitch and facility owners and operators. The main strategies before you today do not detail the results of this audit, as each one is hundreds of pages long. However, these audit reports were originally made available as part of the public consultation in March and April, and will be published on the Council's website as supporting evidence after adoption of the strategies. Throughout the process, the consultants have reported to and engaged with the technical steering group, including council officers, local, regional and national sports bodies like Sport England. Alongside this, officers and the consultant team have kept councillors engaged through the joint local plan member steering group. We implemented a voluntary public consultation on these strategies between March and April earlier this year, with over 140 responses from a variety of respondents, including sports clubs, sports participants, developers and town and parish councils. Officers have set out the responses to this consultation and how they have been addressed in Appendix 4 of the reports pack. The Scrutiny Committee considered the strategies on 5th of November 2024, and officers invited members to provide detailed technical comments. Officers have set out responses to those comments in Appendix 7, page 467 of the reports pack. The key issues and changes were Abingdon Gymnastics Club has been changed to being in the west sub-area as it's in Berensfield. Updated the recommendations of the Mugger at Chalgrove and an expansion to this facility. Included a recommendation for improving the skate park at Chalgrove and included Didcot Town Council as lead partner for improvements to Willowbrook Leisure Centre. Updated references to the new climate change net zero commitments of the Council. Should Cabinet agree to adopt strategies, they will move to their delivery stage, known as the action plan. This is where we will build on the recommendations and the strategies to create specific projects. There will be regular monitoring, evaluation and progress reviews of the action plan. So I'm happy to assist Cabinet members with any queries or points of clarification they may have regarding the reports, and would also like to propose the recommendations to Cabinet as outlined to adopt both strategies. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Do you know?
She can't.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Councillor Philippa Rivers, if you want to speak now or
I'll speak at the end.
speak at the end. I'm going to raise the issues from the Scrutiny Committee. You picked up some of them. The first two was about having a network strategy for Pan district provision. Second was to report back to Scrutiny, and the next three consideration of mountain bikes and active travel are specifics that will presumably be picked up in the action plan. And Section 106 agreements between planning officers and infrastructure planning team should take place on large developments for funding. I think that's taken forward with each individual plan. So can I open? Let's speak now.
Just a question, if anybody knows what this first point, scrutiny point.
I did. I mean, when I actually was at scrutiny meeting, obviously asking questions, and I think really what it's looking at is really something that could be looked at in future iterations of strategy in line with the future local plan development. But the strategies currently already, or the strategy is currently already based on networked approach, based on a catchment area for each type of facility, and the catchment areas, so how far people are willing to travel to them, is based on guidance from Sports England. So the strategies therefore consider how a network of existing new facilities meet the needs of our residents. So I think, I mean, in terms of a vision, these strategies have been developed under our, I mean, it's part of the evidence base, the joint local plan, and our vision for our joint local plan actually went out the issues consultation the beginning of March 2022, before these strategies then were launched. So I think there is a vision actually that we have taken forward through these strategies. So I think if there's any desire for a change of that, that really is for the next plan going forward.
Okay. Any more questions? Councillor Kitterea.
Yeah, I just have a question on the transport and active travel between small parishes have the same issue that scrutiny brought up, and looking through the leisure strategies, I was conscious that it was very much focused on sport, which is obviously an important part, but the sort of it felt that the leisure side of it was less important, and actually scrutiny has brought this up, and I was wondering if, when you say we can take this forward in the action plans, what would that look like? How would we be doing that? And it's just that active travel, obviously, in the local plan is something that we're not responsible for directly. We're not the Highways Authority, but in what way can this? I was thinking this would be an extra hook, an extra thing we could put in. But how would you see that?
I think sometimes we need to also look at this as part of the joint local plan, and there are other transport policies in there and other policies in there to look at it as a whole. So you can't expect these strategies in themselves to cover everything. So I think the scope of the strategies, I mean, that we followed the methodology very much of Sports England and the other national bodies. So I think when you're looking at transport and getting between the different parishes, that's also covered by other aspects of the joint local plan.
And specifically, I would think things like local cycling and walking infrastructure plans would look at safe transport. So it's kind of outside the scope of this paper, but it is picked up in various places elsewhere.
If I could help, actually, is that okay?
Yeah.
More of a comment than a question. Obviously, we do have our own active community strategy, and I think my hope would be to be able to use this in order to review it, and anything not picked up by it, then we can, because remember we had a lot more on green and blue assets and active travel, etc. in there. So I think this is probably for Council of Heritage, maybe to have a think about with the officers, but I think that would be a natural next step, is to review what is really up to date and extensive evidence, and on the basis of that, we can also update our very own.
I think that will be a really positive way of taking that forward. Yeah.
I think in summary, this is one strategy which links in with lots of other strategies.
And it's also a high level strategy, and the action plan is where the detail and Council of Heritage will come in with working with the officers.
Right, that was questions. Do we have any?
We've got another 20 hours.
I'm constantly amazed by the ability of councillors to turn questions into something that are not quite questions. If we can move on to debating the item, Does anyone have any points that they would like to make in debate? If not, then I'll move to this, ask the seconder if they'd like to bear something up.
Sure. I can't remember exactly. Oh, yes, it was in 2015, 2014, the last time this type of piece of work was done. So it was time really to get this, and I'm really glad that we do. It can be used in many different ways, and I don't know about other councillors, but some of the kind of more extensive documents, I just put Goring in there and in the search box just to see what's happening in my world, not to be too chaotic. But actually what I wanted to say is that I think that the consultants were excellent. I was at couple of sessions, or maybe 3 sessions, as part of the JLP steering group and also others as well. And I think that they have done an excellent job, and I want to thank them and our officers for putting it together. And I'm sure that there will be different ways in which we can utilize it.
I should have said before we went into debate, people who are joining us online, you can speak in debate. What you can't do is vote or propose or second things. But use the hand or wave at me, because you are quite large on the wall if you wave, I'll notice. Councillor Simpson, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I'd actually really like to thank the officers, because I know there's been a lot of work. This has, been in train since 2022. It's involved quite a few of us as cabinet members, and it has come to us also, as has been mentioned in the report, through the steering group as well a few times. And I'd just like to also really point out that the step to go out to public consultation was a rather unusual one. It's not something that normally gets done for these strategies, and we decided, sort of very much in line with our openness and wanting to reach out to get more views, openness and transparency, or to have that public participation or consultation. And I think it did actually improve the plan, and you can see how it's fed in to the development of it as well. So I'm really pleased with the way it's gone, and I'm really pleased with all the work that's gone into it, all the contributions from the public and from officers, and I want to thank them very much for taking it through. I know that I probably shouldn't be naming particular officers, should I? But the
No, because then you'll regret forgetting.
officer team's fantastic. So thank you.
If I can remind people what we're voting on, there are 2 recommendations. One is to review and adopt the leisure facilities assessment and strategy, and the other is to review and adopt the playing pitch strategy. Can I see those in favour of those recommendations? That's everyone. Okay. Moving to the next item is the council tax base setting, which, as I've said before, is endlessly fascinating, but we can do our debating outside the room. Councillor Barker, if I formally propose this, would you like to introduce it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I formally propose. Can someone formally second? Councillor Philippa Rivers. Please, Paul, is there anything that you would like to say by way of introduction to the item?
Not a lot. I think it's it's a standard item we get every year, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, plenty of detail in the table at the end, which I'm sure we're all very interested in, but not for debate tonight. So yeah, I'd like to recommend that we support the motion.
Okay, so we have the recommendations in front of us on page 469, if you haven't found it. And there are 3 recommendations there, which are basically to accept this schedule. Can I see those in favour? Again, that's everybody. Yeah. And moving to the next item, which is item 10, which is the council tax reduction scheme. Yeah, again, I'll formally propose it, but I'll look for somebody to formally second. She's over there. We have another specific. We'll share the formal voting and seconding between two deputies. Councillor Bennett, second that. And Councillor Barker, would you like to introduce? It's the council tax reduction scheme. 25.
Thank you. Yes, so this is a scheme that we have been running for some time, and definitely want to continue running. It's vital at a time when many people are struggling with the cost of living, and in fact that's also why there's a change which is proposed here. We're finding that some people are in genuine need, are applying quite late, and are nevertheless genuine cases that we would wish to help. So therefore the proposal is in the recommendation to extend the period in which a new claim for council tax reduction can be backdated from 6 months to 12 months. And although the number of cases that will affect will be very small, somewhere up to 5 or so based on the last year, I think it's still a worthwhile thing to do to help those in greatest need.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Barker? Don't see any.
I just have one question.
Councillor Bennett.
We just questioned the CTR caseload, council tax reduction caseload for each year. Are those people that actually get the reduction of the 5,000 or 4,951? Is that people that apply or people that get it? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that myself. I don't know if there's anybody online who might know.
Sorry, that's on page 477.
Yes, at the top, table at the top. It's just under 5,000 cases, isn't it? But yeah, whether they're cases that are assessed and whether all of those are paid, I don't know. Simon?
I've got Simon Viewing was just got his hand up.
Yeah, so I think I was just checking I wasn't on mute. So the table at the top of page 10, basically, as you say, it shows the caseload, which is hovers around the 5,000 mark. But the actual number of claims we're talking about here, is 26 and 25, and we'd expect the similar numbers. I think if you went lower numbers than that, if you went beyond 6 months, because it's low numbers, and obviously the financial impact is quite low as well, particularly for South, because obviously the council tax is across all the precepting authorities.
The specific question, Simon, was the caseload, the about 5,000 figure each year. Is that people who apply, or is that people who get it?
No, that's people who get it.
People get it. Thanks.
Good.
Any other questions, or if we move into discussion? Anyone have any points they want to discuss? Councillor Casey.
I just want to say I really welcome this, and I'm really glad we're doing this. I think it's a really important time to help as many people as possible. So I'm very pleased.
There are no other hands in summing up.
Second.
Oh, no, sorry.
Second.
Maggie wants to say something.
I just wanted to make a comment. As a lot of you will know, I work with a few local authorities, and it's always been incredible to know how generous our council tax reduction scheme is, and we're very, very lucky, and so our residents, because it can actually be quite an enormous cost on people. And so, Simon, long may it continue, and especially now when people are still very much struggling with cost of living. I think it's great to have it.
Seconder, would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Having the increased backdating for urgent cases, because sometimes you get into financial trouble quite abruptly, and can get into real trouble quite fast. So that, even though it's only a small number of cases, I think that's a valuable change, and it's interesting to see that there's quite a large number of people that get the relief. Quite surprised that it is such a high number, but good that it. Because I sometimes worry that people aren't aware of the policy, but clearly the right people do get told about it when they need it.
My summing up, I say this is, thank you to Simon for bringing this.
Oh, I was just referring to Mark, actually. Sorry, I didn't.
Can people behave?
Just need to travel.
In my summing up, I would say this is something that doesn't cost us a great deal of money, but makes a massive difference to the people who get it. So I think thank you to Simon for bringing forward the proposal, and I would ask people to support it. So can we see those in favour of the recommendation, which is to extend the backdating from 2 months? So yeah, again, it's unanimous. Thank you. Item 11 is the performing arts grant policy. As Councillor Heritage isn't in the room, I'll formally propose it, and then if we get a formal seconding from Councillor Philip Rivers, I'll then ask Councillor Heritage to do the introduction. Before you do so, I'll remind you of the things that our guest speaker, Councillor Gavishak, said, which was, first of all, that he welcomed the policy and that it would help community groups, but he would like us to consider, first of all, whether core costs, whether it would be appropriate to make core costs available, and a plea that the application process should be simple. I think that's a summary. I was less eloquent than him, but that's the core points. So, Councillor Heritage, would you like to introduce the?
Yes, yeah, I'll look forward to introducing it, but in due course, I'll also look forward to addressing Stefan's comments, if I may, afterwards, because I have several notes, quite an extensive response for him that may also be helpful to colleagues who may have similar questions. So I'll look forward to addressing that as well. In terms of the introduction, which I'm very pleased to make, at the full council meeting on the 22nd of February 2024, members approved the allocation of £60,000 to support community and voluntary sector performing arts groups in the district. This scheme is designed to provide financial assistance to performing arts projects that demonstrate a significant community impact. The report we're considering today proposes a new performing arts grant policy to distribute £60,000 annually for the next 3 years to community arts groups in South Oxfordshire. The grant aims to enhance community wellbeing through performing arts, support voluntary and community performing arts groups, promote inclusivity and participation, and build the capacity of the local performing arts scene in our area. Now that many organisations are recovering from the COVID period and are looking to future growth, this funding will give us the opportunity to encourage that growth for many organisations in the sector and seeks to support their development. It's also important to note that organisations can make as many applications as they like for different growth projects and to support their revenue streams. So this exciting funding programme is a diverse and potentially far-reaching opportunity to benefit our local creative organisations in South Oxfordshire. Other key points for the new scheme, grants will range from £500 to £5,000, which will enable the funding to flex between small and large, existing and emerging groups. Applications will be assessed based on community benefit and need, sustainability, value for money, collaborative approaches, and their reach and breadth of work. Funds are to be used within 1 year of being awarded. Now, in the original paper, applications open between the 13th of January 2025 and close on the 7th of March 2025, with successful applicants notified by the 10th of March, and funding decisions to be made on a first come, first served basis. I'd like to note, following discussion with Cabinet, I'd like to note an addendum to these points. We are minded to have a 4-week period for applications from the 1st of February for 1 month, and then make a decision in March before we make an award announcement. This will then ensure a fair distribution of the grants, both on a sector and geographical basis, and within the criteria as detailed in the report. We're also conscious from discussions that while we've intended to give the funding towards revenue applications, this has not been as clear in the report as it should have been, and I'd like to confirm that applications supporting revenue streams will be considered as a priority before capital allocations are considered. Now, amongst the many benefits of this Performing Arts Grant, we anticipate that the outcome of the funding programme will address local needs for cultural participation, stimulate economic growth through the creative industries and tourism, enhance the district's cultural offer, and align with national and regional cultural and economic priorities. It's an ambitious and an innovative new grant scheme, and we want to ensure it reaches and engages as many performing arts organisations as possible. So upon approval, the next steps are that a communications plan will be developed to promote the scheme. Content will be created for the council website and social media, and a drop-in session will be held for interested organisations. So in short, targeted promotion, support and guidance to applicants. I therefore recommend that Cabinet agree that the Performing Arts Grant Policy, as detailed in this report, and implement the distribution of the £60,000 grant funding each year for the next 3 years, subject to annual full council budget approval. And I recommend that Cabinet authorise the assessment and allocation of grant awards as detailed in the report and delegated to the Head of Communities in consultation with the Head of Finance and relevant Cabinet member. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Heritage? One understands that. Can I ask you, when we come to sum up, if you can read out that addendum again, just so that people are clear what it is they're voting for, but we'll do that at the end of the
question.
Yes, yes. And
Councillor Bennett has a question.
Hi, Georgina. I was just wondering, I know from experience that a lot of arts organisations do struggle to cover core costs. What was the rationale for not permitting core costs in the grant scheme?
Okay, I'm actually going to allow the very talented Phil Barker to explain that in a little bit more detail as to why it was not appropriate in a moment. However, if I might be allowed to give, actually I'll allow Phil to respond to that specifically, and then I'd like to give a wider response if that's okay.
No worries.
Phil?
Thanks, Councillor Heritage. Yeah, the reason was that core costs is normally a long-term commitment from an organisation, and the funding has been set aside as one-off funding over 3 years. So it's only 3 years funding, and therefore we felt that it was better to stimulate growth rather than a commitment over a long term, because it was only 3-year funding. But we thoroughly expect, and the councillor's comments earlier on was how many community organisations are taking part in one of the theatres that he talked about. All of those theatres, all of those groups would be appropriate to come forward for some funding, and if they did, then that would stimulate growth, audience development, additional revenue streams, and take-ins on secondary spend in terms of drinks and eateries. So we can see that the stimulation of the growth and the actual audience development will actually stimulate income and reduce costs within theatres. And the theatre themselves can also run development activities that could be supported within the grant funding. So there are a number of opportunities where theatres could actually impact and support their bottom line and their sustainability going forward. But as I said, this is only 3-year funding, and we felt that it was better to stimulate growth and economic activity and creativity within the sector, and also across the whole district. So that's why we've come up with the proposals as we have.
May I just add to that, when the funding was first agreed, it was at a time when recovery was still being discussed post-COVID. Times have moved on, and the research suggests that we really are transitioning to a period of growth now. So this funding will give the opportunity to develop, to benefit many organisations, but I think allowing organisations to make more than one application, I think that the kind of wide reach that we have within this grant package will provide the kind of assistance that those groups are looking for at this stage. But anyway, I hope that's answered your question, Councillor Bennett, but I can elaborate further if you have.
That's fine, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any further questions? If
May I
not,
respond to Stefan's sort of questions and comments earlier on, or is that?
Yeah, it's probably best that you do that now rather than leaving it to the end, because that might form part of our debate otherwise.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to respond.
Okay, so I'll go back to what I just said, that I think the funding has taken a different shape, or the industry, if you like, has taken a different shape to when this was first discussed. And I think that the funding, Stefan, it's a catalyst to support the wider sectors across the district. But theatre operators, including Henley, Tame and Wallingford, will be encouraged to come forward with proposals to develop their programmes, their ideas, their development initiatives. In terms of how the funding is offered, I think the grant process is fair. We're spending public money. We have to account for it openly and transparently. We have to demonstrate need and value rather than just kind of, giving a load of money to an organisation, which I'm sure wasn't what you were suggesting anyway. But it was always envisaged that funding would need to be through a grant application approach. And as I mentioned in my introduction, offering the opportunity of a range of funding, it will enable the funding to flex between different needs. I think the proposal is balanced. I think it's a balanced approach to cover the whole sector. It does include theatres and facility operators across the district, but I think we've moved beyond sort of propping up our facilities post-COVID, and we need to start supporting the revitalisation of the culture and the creative sector. So the model we're proposing, it will increase participation, skills and so on, and it will encourage audiences to enjoy the performing arts across the whole district. I noticed that you mentioned Kenton Theatre specifically. I find that is interesting, and they are very, very welcome to apply for this grant. And I'm sure you're aware that they're moving forward in their ambitions. There was a recent press article, which I'm sure you're aware of, that the Kenton Theatre has improved its financial performance greatly in the last year. It's projected to do better in 2025. They have great ambitions. They have a £1.5 million bid to the National Lottery, which I believe is a stage of expression of interest. And I really wish them success with this. It's exactly this ambition and entrepreneurial approach that we want to support. I'm sure that officers would be happy to visit to see what support they can offer to these theatres going forward. But as I mentioned, this is a development approach. It's an exciting time for the culture and creative sector, and I'm confident that that sector's up to the challenge, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring forward in the coming months. And I hope that's addressed many of your comments, Stefan.
Thank you. I think we're still at questions. Does anyone have any further questions, or shall we move into debate?
I do have one very brief question, just to confirm. Though we talk about a 3-year scheme, whether this policy applies only initially just for the first year, doesn't it? Because it only talks about 2025.
It's a 3-year scheme.
But I guess each year it will be subject to a fresh budgeting.
That's right.
Yeah.
The intention.
So I mean, I guess where I was getting at was, in theory, the cabinet member could, you can assess how it's gone this time, and it's great that it's happening so quickly, because then you can assess, did it have the impact you want, and tweak it if necessary.
We would normally reassess schemes. If we launched a new scheme, we would normally assess it after a year anyway, to see how it's going. But yeah, quite often we build things into the medium-term financial plan for 3 years, or continuous, but they're always subject to being refined at the next budget process. So I hope that answers that. Shall we move into debate now? Does anyone have any points which they want to make in debate? Councillor Simpson.
I'm just going to say I think it's quite an exciting scheme. I didn't know much about it till I read the paper and have listened to what you've all been saying, and I think it's exciting, and I like the model that you've got. I think it is going to be innovative, and that it opens itself up to lots of different people from the district coming forward, different groups coming forward to apply, and I think it will hopefully achieve the outcomes that we all want. So, which is sort of stimulating growth in those areas. So well done. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll sum up.
Councillor Bennett.
Are you the second? Oh, okay.
Still arguing about it.
But I mean, I agree. I think it's really great that as a district council, we're giving out money for the arts. I'd say probably most district councils don't do that. In addition to the support we already give to Cornerstone, which is also fantastic. And it will be interesting to see. It's also great that it's taking effect so quickly. So basically, almost as soon as we've approved it and everyone's had Christmas dinner, we'll be then promoting it to our local parishes. And then they can apply almost straight away and know the response pretty quickly as well. So that's great. I think we are in an. I do recall the debate we had, and I have some sympathy with Councillor Gavrishak's points, but we don't have the situation in Cornerstone is very different because it's our unit, so we can allocate money to it. We can't just allocate money to any business or charity of our choice. We have to have a process. So I can see while you've worked through the process, you've ended up in a slightly different place from that original discussion. But I agree there are lots of positives to that as well, and the idea of we all have little arts organisations in our villages and towns that will benefit from this. Even like 19-year-old me trying to set up Truck Festival could have applied for this in Vale back in 1998. It existed, and I know from experience of Baronsfield grant schemes that the team, when we do drop-ins and support, we can provide quite a lot of support to applicants to navigate the grant process. And of course, this isn't just about theatres. This performing arts covers a wide range of things, from orchestras, bands, slam poetry, I don't know, fire breathing. So it'll be interesting to see what applications we do get and what arts organisations do exist across the district. Just to mention a few, I mean, those big organisations do have a variety of other places they apply to. The Arts Council, there's the recent Music Venue Trust scheme where major concert venues are contributing £1 per ticket towards a fund that will go towards the fabric of venues. And actually the Kensington Theatre is a venue as well, as is Cornerstone. So those type of funds will also become available to support venues. So as you say, the landscape is constantly shifting. So thanks for bringing this forward, Councillor Heritage, and I'll be happy to support it.
So, Councillor
Yeah, just briefly, I just want to say yes, well done for bringing this forward. I think it's a good policy. I'm really pleased that as a council we're looking at the creative industries and arts, really valuable in themselves. I think the council, historically has been very focused, rightly in lots of ways, on the science and technology development in the district, and it's just really, I think it's a really good time to appreciate all the other industries and activity that goes on in the district. And just on a sort of GDP level, if you think about the country, the creative industries, I think, bring in more than all of that science and technology does, and I don't think that's really appreciated. So I think what we're doing is really, it's a good start, really good start.
Can I say one other thing that I forgot to say?
Go on.
Something that was in my mind, it was so fresh that I forgot it by the time I spoke. But in the Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership meeting this morning, there was a report about developing a social investment fund for Oxfordshire as an idea. So it's what, and I know as Southern Vale, as we're doing currently mentoring and support for social enterprise, and I just wonder whether we might want to think in future years of extending the remit beyond charitable groups towards well, there's a variety of definitions within the social enterprise sphere that are not the same as charities. And I'm sure the economic development team could talk to you about what those are, because they're currently running a scheme to support them and support the development of that sector. So there's quite a lot between charity and profit-making businesses. There's a whole area there.
Anyone else in debate? Councillor Heritage, do you have anything else you want to add before we go to summing up?
Not really, except that thank you for those comments, Councillor Bennett. I just want to express my thanks actually to Phil Barker and Daniel Harrison and the grants team. Phil and Daniel have got an excellent understanding and knowledge of the industry and have been hugely supportive in this. And I can't thank them enough for that level of understanding and support. And they've helped us produce something that I feel very proud of. And thank you also to the grants team for doing an excellent job in putting this process together. So thanks to all. And would you like me to repeat the addendum?
I'll come to that when we've done the final summing up. Councillor Philip Rivers.
I wish I'd taken a notebook because there's quite a lot I want to say as the previous portfolio holder for this area of work. But first of all, thanks to Stefan for really kind of helping us to readdress some of the imbalance that exists between what is happening in Didcot and what is happening elsewhere. I think certainly I remember Councillor Bennett and Councillor Rowan and I spoke about kind of Cornerstone being the network. Do you remember? And really linking in with other performing arts venues and initiatives around the district. I really think that this will help us. And I remember I spoke to Daniel and during the briefing, and he suggested that we already have quite good networks. But I think this will probably help us to strengthen them and that relationship and bring them to the table so that we can kind of work together and support the growth, of the sector. So this was one thing, and I do want to thank Councillor Gavchak. Absolutely, I think it is really important that we get this out of the door as soon as possible. I think the money, that is, the funding, I hope that we can reassess and reevaluate. This is a pilot for us, and it's really interesting because I think that there has been from the beginning quite a lot of commitment to make this a light touch scheme. But it's the more meetings we have about it, the more things we seem to be adding complications. So let's give it a go, and I'm sure we can review. I think it's fair. It's fairer than focusing on particular venues. I think again will help us with that network development. I also, again, being a little bit parochial for Goring, there's actually quite a lot of thriving culturally and artsy things happening, and I wouldn't want kind of villages to be excluded. So I'm really glad that it is we're seeking some geographical distribution. And what else? Yeah, I absolutely support what Councillor Bennett said about including community interest companies, or social enterprises, although there's a bit of a variety there as well, but I certainly think that's something that we should consider when we do the review. And finally, thank you to Georgina. I think you've done a really good job shaping this together with the officers. So yeah, thank you for that as well.
Thank you, and apologies for my muttering. Myself and the pedant next to me were trying to sort out the amendment that we were making to the motion. So I will sum up and then I'll ask Mark to tell us what it is we're actually voting on, because we're amending what the original thing was. So in my summing up, yes, thanks to Stefan for raising this at the last budget round. As an accountant, I would say that budgets do bring out the best in us. They make us think about everything we do, and this made us think about the fact that we were putting a lot of money into Cornerstone, and that wasn't strictly fair to all the other arts organisations around the district. I would say that thanks to the work of the officers and the new team at within that area. We're actually putting less money into Cornerstone now than we were previously. And it's very noticeable when you go in there how much busier it is and how many more bums on seats there are when you try to book a ticket. So well done to them, and that was an essential part of our transition strategy, was to reduce the deficit there, and being able to redistribute that around the district, I think, is a good thing. This really is a good news story. I, like most of the people around this table, I guess, didn't come into politics to be cutting things back and implementing austerity. I think it's great that we kept our leisure centres running when many other local authorities had to pull out of that provision. We've kept our support for the arts when that's a very soft target for lots of councils who are struggling with their financial priorities. So I'm really proud of what this council does in terms of both of those areas. In terms of the changes that we're making, I'm glad that we're addressing the first come, first served element, because that tends to reward, if you go first come, first served, it tends to reward those who are already well organised and already geared up towards tapping into these schemes. Those of us who, when we're looking at councillor grant applications, we know that the same names come forward first every time because they're on that treadmill, and I think we do need to open it up to so that we can look at other applications as well alongside those before we make a decision. So I'm pleased to see that change. One thing that nobody has mentioned is the towns and parish councils. And remember the discussion that said a lot of arts organisations are not constituted in a formal way, in the way that companies or more professional organisations are. So allowing them to use the town and parish council as a vehicle for making those applications, I think, is an imaginative way of addressing that problem. Because I've in the past been worked with some very small organisation, and these days it's actually really difficult because the Charity Commission doesn't register very small organisations anymore, and banks quite often don't recognise those sort of institutions. It's incredibly difficult to get a bank account for lots of voluntary organisations. So being able to use towns and parishes as a vehicle for doing that, I think, is a really imaginative way of getting around that problem. So we now come to the recommendation and that we're going to vote on. And Mark, are you clear as to what it is that we're voting on?
I think so.
Georgina, if you can listen and tell us if he's got it wrong.
So at the moment, it says the recommendation would be to agree Appendix 1. But you have proposed, I believe, a change to Section 6, which is the payment cycle, the assessment cycle. So when you read out your addendum, you would be changing Section 6 of Appendix 1.
Yes.
So if you were happy, would members agree to clarify a recommendation C, that Phil Barker can update the policy with Georgina's sign off to cover what Georgina has described, just so we can tidy it up, because it currently doesn't say in the policy you're about to approve what Georgina described.
So it's A and B. A and B as recommendations here, but subject to Appendix 1 being updated as described,
And Phil will do it.
and agreeing Part C to allow the head of service to make changes to the document to reflect the proposals that Councillor Heritage outlined for us in the meeting.
In consultation. with the government.
Yes, the head of service in consultation with the cabinet member. And they are twinned together on my screen.
Just checking.
Well, we just need to agree the amendment and then do the motion.
Okay, so we should do the amendment, vote on the amendment first, and then action. So, following due process, if I propose the amendment and Councillor Philippa Rivers, can you second the amendment? Can I see those in favour of amending the recommendation as I've just described?
Unanimous, thank you.
That's everyone, and I have no further summing up to do on the motion itself, so can I see those in favour of the motion as amended?
Brilliant,
Is everyone?
thank you.
Thank you, and we,
Thank you.
and I'm sure the monitoring officer will be proud of us for the way that we negotiated our way through that. Oh. That's his resting happy face. Item 12, we're moving on to now, which is joint public health funerals policy. Yes. And Councillor James Lorry is online. So again, if I formally propose this, and Councillor Bennett, can you formally second? And then we'll get Councillor James Lorry to introduce it. Off you go, Sam.
Good afternoon. So our council has a legal duty to arrange all public health funerals where there are no surviving next of kin or where the next of kin are unwilling to take on the responsibility for arranging the deceased funeral or don't come forward when requested. This report seeks adoption of an updated version of the council's joint public health funerals policy to bring it in line with current legislation. By updating this policy, the council will be clear in the level of funeral which will be provided, and the process officer will follow. As was confirmed when the agenda pack was sent out, there is one appendix included with the report, which is the proposed new policy. It is important that we have a clear joint public health funerals policy in place to ensure we continue to provide dignified, simple, cost-effective funerals for the deceased. The production of the council's updated joint public health funerals policy has been completed, and approval of adoption of this policy is being sought from the cabinet.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have one.
Councillor Kiss.
In the policy, it says in 10.6 that the council is not obligated to inform the surviving spouse, partner, next of kin, blah, 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 of the time and place of the funeral, but they'll be informed afterwards. That seems a bit harsh. Is that because, I mean, what's the reasoning behind that? I didn't quite understand why that was in there.
I'm not completely sure. I'm not sure if there was an officer online to answer that. Scott, yep.
Scott's got his hand up. Scott Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I may, I'd just like to ask my colleague Charlie Packham, just to pick up that point. Charlie was sort of pivotal in pulling the policy together, so he'll have the knowledge on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I think the reason that was put in into the policy is because we have had occasions where there have been next of kin that we have traced, but they weren't willing to do the funeral themselves because of it was either too expensive and didn't have the money, but we've had situations where they've then wanted lots of relatives and friends to attend the cemetery when the interment is taking place, and then that's caused some issues with our funeral provider in terms of they're providing, I guess, a service for us for a private interment, effectively.
I thought that might be okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you both. Any other questions? In which case, I'll say a few words to propose it, and that is, whilst this seems a strange thing for us to be discussing, it's really important for the few people that it affects, and it's important that we give, as we give support in life to our residents, that we give dignity in death as well. So I think this is an important policy, and I'd like to thank the officers for tidying up and bringing it up to date. If we can then move to a vote, can I see those in favour? That's everyone. Thank you. And item 13, which is the waste transfer station contract award. Can I point out to members of the Cabinet that there are two papers on this, one of which is confidential because it includes financial information regarding the arrangements. If any members of the Cabinet want to discuss those, we've all read them, so we know what's in there. But if anybody wants to discuss them or raise points relating to them, then we'll have to go into private session. So if you can alert me if that's what you want to do. But I think it's possible that we could get through this item without having to speak about the confidential section of it. We'll try to do that to start with, but if anybody does want to move into confidential session, then we will. Okay, so again, I will formally propose it, and a seconder. It's Robin's turn to second. And I'll ask Sam James Lorry to introduce the item.
Our council has a statutory duty to collect waste and recycling. The fleet of waste collection vehicles delivers garden waste, food waste and non-recyclable waste to drop-off locations provided under contract by Oxfordshire County Council. For the dry mix recycling, DMR, the plastic, metal, glass, paper and card collected from the green bins goes to a special facility that can separate this material out and then sell it for reuse. These facilities are called Material Recovery Facilities, or MRFs, but there are no MRFs in the district or in Oxfordshire which the vehicles can transport the materials to. Instead, the most cost-effective and most environmentally sensitive way of getting the recycling to the MFR is to transfer it from the collection vehicles into heavy goods vehicles using bulk and transfer facilities. The current transfer facility is at the Culham Depot, which in the coming years is scheduled to close for redevelopment. With the depot moving to a new location but being unable to accommodate a transfer facility, the council would be unable to transfer the DMR or to the MRF. Therefore, a procurement exercise has been completed and a company identified that can offer a new transfer facility station within the area. This essential piece of waste and resource infrastructure can be operational by June 2026, which is the date from when it will be needed. This report asks that the Cabinet reviews and accepts the bid received, which will allow officers to complete the contractual arrangements, and officers are in attendance to answer any specific questions members have. It is important that we maintain the statutory waste and recycling collection service as we transition from the current to the new management in 2026. Accepting the contract for the new transfer facility that is in a central location and available at a fair price will support a seamless service transition.
Thank you. And impressive use of three-letter acronyms, or TLAs, as we'll refer to them. Any questions? Do we have any questions either for the officers or for Councillor James Lorry? It does seem pretty straightforward. So, any items of debate? Not seeing any. So, Councillor Bennett, do you want to do any summing up?
Well, I can't sum up to something, but I'll say, yeah, I don't think we have a lot of choice, and we perform well at recycling. As we know, the current location is an allocated strategic site that has a planning application in for it right now, so there is some urgency. So, makes sense to do this.
And as formal proposer, I'll sum up by saying this is an essential service we provide. It's one of the unglamorous parts of being a local authority, but one that we do well and that we want to continue doing well. So if I can propose that recommendation, which you can see on page 502, that the Cabinet approves the award of contract for a new transfer station facility to handle the council's dry mix recycling. Can I see those in favour? That is everyone. Thank you. And we managed to do that without going into confidential sessions. So well done us. That was managing back to my agenda. That was item 13. The next item on the agenda is something which we do have to take in confidential session. So I'm going to propose that we exclude the public to consider whether, proposing the motion to consider whether to exclude members of the press and public from the meeting for the following item of business under section 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended, on the grounds that 1, it is likely that there will be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of schedule 12A, and 2, that the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. If I propose that, can someone second it? Councillor Kitty, where I put my eye first. Any debate around that? In which case, can I see those in favour of the motion? Again, that's everyone. So if we can ask the officer to end the live stream.
Yes, Susie, please can you